The flashing red and blue lights bled across the slick London streets, their restless rhythm painting the city in colors of alarm. The police car surged forward through the morning glare, its siren muted now, but its urgency still alive in the pulse of its lights. Inside, Anya Woodberg lay pressed against the cold leather seat, her wrists aching from the unforgiving bite of the handcuffs. Every jolt of the vehicle sent a tremor through her body. Her breath caked short, uneven gasps, fogging the glass before her. Strands of dark hair clung to her tear-dampened cheeks, framing eyes that darted helplessly toward the two uniformed officers in front. The air smelled faintly of rubber, metal, and something sterile. "Please," she sobbed, her voice raw and cracking under the weight of disbelief. "This is a mistake. I didn't kill my father. You have to believe me." Her words trembled into the air and vanished, unanswered. The officers remained still, their faces turned forward, silhouettes against the flicker of the dashboard lights. The silence between them was thick, colder than steel, pressing against her ribs until she could barely breathe. Only the faint crackle of the police radio broke it now and then, followed by the steady hum of tires slicing through the dry. Her mind spun, grasping at fragments of what had been real only hours ago. Her father, Ryan Woodberg, was dead, murdered. Someone had taken him from her, and now they thought she was the one who had done it. The thought struck her again and again like a cruel echo. They had come for her at the shop, breaking into the gentle quiet of her morning, tearing her from the scent of old paper and dust, from the comforting clutter of her bookstore, where she had spent so many peaceful days. One moment she had been sorting through a box of secondhand poetry, and the next, she was on the ground, hands bound, the cold air outside cutting into her skin as people stared. Then another image rose through the fog of panic, piercing everything. Kai. Her daughter's name pulsed in her chest like a wound that would not stop bleeding. Sweet, blonde-haired Kai, 7 years old, deaf since birth, and more radiant than sunlight through stained glass. Anya saw her now, as if through the haze of a dream, sitting at her little desk in school, head bent over a drawing, lips curved in concentration. The thought that Kai might return home to an empty house, her small hand signing Mama again and again into the silence, made something inside Anya break open. A sob escaped her, raw and involuntary, her shoulders shaking as she tugged futilely against the cuffs. The metal bit into her wrists, but she hardly felt it. The pain was already elsewhere, deeper and clawing at her heart. "Fred," she whispered through her tears, the sound almost lost in the hum of the car. "Fred, where are you?" His name was both plea and memory, a tether to sanity she refused to let go of. Fred Stevenson, the man she loved, the father of her child, the one who had once made her believe she could build a life from the ruins of her past. He was part of the Metropolitan Police. He had to know what was happening. He had to. He would never let this stand. "Please!" Her voice rose suddenly, breaking through the stillness like glass shattering. "You have to call Detective Stevenson. Fred will clear this up. Please. He knows me. He knows I didn't do this." The words tumbled out in uneven bursts, her body trembling as if her desperation itself might shake the truth loose. The officer in the passenger seat, a stern woman with hair drawn into a severe bun, turned her head just enough to look at her. Her eyes were unreadable, her tone quiet but firm. "Detective Stevenson has been informed." Hope flickered faintly within Anya, like a fragile, flickering light caught in the storm of her fear. She clung to it as if it could hold her together, as if it could keep her from dissolving entirely. "Then let me speak to him," she pleaded, voice breaking again. "Please, I swear to you, I didn't do this." But the officer had already turned away, her face once more swallowed by the steady wash of red and blue light. The city outside continued to blur past them, glass and brick and shadow, melting together in motion. Anya's body trembled uncontrollably now, though she could not tell if it was from fear, shock, or the cold that had settled deep into her bones. Her thoughts scattered, reassembling only around the image of Kai, her small, delicate hands, her laughter like birdsong, her stubborn insistence on independence despite the world's silence around her. Anya could see her standing in their kitchen, head tilted curiously as she tried to read her mother's lips, the two of them laughing when a misunderstanding turned into a game. She had to go back. She had to get home to her. The car turned sharply, and light flared across the window, momentarily blinding her. In that glare, she saw herself reflected, pale, wild-eyed, her lips parted as if caught mid-prayer. For a moment, she felt suspended between two worlds, the one she knew, filled with books and Kai's laughter, and this new one, made only of sirens, metal, and fear. Her heart thudded painfully against her ribs, and she realized with cold certainty that she was being carried away from everything that mattered, from the only life that had ever made sense. London continued to glow, indifferent and beautiful, its streets washed in the restless color of emergency lights. Anya sat in silence, her tears drying into salt on her skin, her hands still bound, her pulse echoing in her ears like a promise she refused to break. She would make them see. She would make Fred believe her. And above all, she would find her way back to her daughter, the one soul who could still save her from this endless, suffocating night. The steady hum of the engine filled the small space of Fred Stevenson's car, a constant drone beneath the turmoil that roiled his mind. His hands rested lightly on the steering wheel, yet even that simple contact felt uneasy, as if the vibrations of the road carried an echo of the chaos inside him. The dull ache in his side, a lingering souvenir from the gunshot wounds that had almost claimed his life weeks ago, throbbed with every turn of the tires, a subtle but insistent reminder of his vulnerability. The doctors had insisted on another checkup before allowing him full duty, a precaution he hated, though he knew it was necessary if he wanted to move freely without restrictions. Hospitals had always felt like cold, impersonal machines, and yet he was willing to endure them for the chance to reclaim his life, his work, and most urgently now, Anya. The sudden vibration of his phone startled him, pulling him from his thoughts with a jolt. The caller ID flashed Ian Lewis. Ian, his longtime friend, colleague, and someone who almost never called without urgency, carried a weight in his voice that Fred felt before the words even came. Frowning, he answered quickly, "Lewis, what's up?" There was a tension in Ian's voice that tightened something deep in Fred's chest, coiling like cold steel around his spine. "Fred, I need you to stay calm," Ian said, and the words alone were enough to make Fred's pulse skip. "What are you talking about?" he asked, though the dread had already begun to settle into his wounds. There was a pause, and when Ian finally spoke, the words struck him like a physical blow. "We arrested Anya." The syllables hung in the air between them, heavy and unrelenting, and for a heartbeat, Fred could not draw breath. The world seemed to tilt and blur, the hum of traffic fading into a muted, distant noise. "You what?" His voice was low and dangerous, simmering with a fury that threatened to burn through the car. "I arrested her," Ian admitted, his voice steady but tinged with regret. "We had to, Fred. It's about her father. He was murdered, and Anya, she's the prime suspect." Fred's hands gripped the wheel until his knuckles turned white, the leather cutting into his skin as his mind fought to comprehend the impossible. Every thought fractured into fragments of disbelief and outrage. "Are you out of your goddamn mind, Ian? Anya? Do you hear yourself? What the hell were you thinking?" His pulse thundered in his ears, drowning out the world, the hum of the engine, the honk of distant horns, until all that remained was the frantic beat of his own outrage. "Fred," Ian began, and the name, his voice, anything that might have tempered the storm, fell flat against the force of Fred's anguish. "Did you hurt her?" he demanded, his voice rough, shaking with a fury that bordered on panic. "Tell me right now, Ian, did you hurt her?" There was a long pause, and then Ian exhaled, a sound almost like surrender. "She resisted, Fred. She was in shock. We had to restrain her." Fred slammed a fist against the dashboard, a sharp crack that seemed to echo inside his chest. "God damn it, Ian. She's not a criminal. Did you think about what this would do to her?" The words were carried on a wave of raw, bitter emotion that threatened to consume him, yet beneath it was something sharper and deeper. Guilt, rage, a visceral need to protect the woman he loved from a world that had suddenly turned hostile. Ian's voice came again, more controlled this time, edged with frustration. "It's not like I had a choice. The evidence? Screw the evidence," Fred roared, his voice nearly shattering the calm of the morning as his hands tightened on the wheel, veins bulging, heart hammering. "You know Anya. You know she would never." Click, the line went dead. Fred stared at the phone in disbelief, the sudden silence heavier than any words could have been. The weight of it pressed into him, and a guttural yell tore from his throat, raw and jagged, the sound swallowed by the interior of the car and the indifferent hum of the city outside. His chest heaved, breaths coming in ragged, uneven pulls as he slammed the phone onto the passenger seat, the impact a small relief against the building storm within him. With trembling hands, he jerked the steering wheel into a sharp U-turn, tires screaming in protest against the asphalt. The hospital, the checkup, all of it could wait. Nothing mattered except reaching her. The streets blurred past in streaks of sunlight reflecting off glass, each red light and hesitant driver an insult, a barrier thrown between him and the woman whose safety had become the axis of his world. His knuckles whitened again as he struck the wheel, cursing under his breath at the obstinate traffic that seemed to conspire against him. His mind raced, images of her bound wrists, tear-streaked cheeks, and wide, frightened eyes filling his vision with unbearable clarity. He imagined her curled up in a dim, stark cell, shoulders trembling with silent sobs, lips pressed to hold back the tide of fear, her small hands marked by the cruel pressure of Ian's cuffs. Did she feel abandoned? Did she believe he had forsaken her too? The thought was a knife twisting in his chest, bringing with it a torrent of guilt and desperation that demanded action, demanded justice, demanded that he be there, to hold her, to tell her she was not alone, to protect her from the world that had turned suddenly hostile. Finally, the familiar outline of the police headquarters rose before him, sharp against the morning light, and he pulled into the lot with a forceful screech of tires, engine roaring as he killed it and sprang from the car. The door slammed behind him, a punctuation to the storm of motion and emotion, and he strode toward the entrance, muscles coiled and vision narrowed, seeing only the path that would lead him to Ian, to Anya, to truth. Every officer who turned toward him felt the heat of his barely contained fury, the intensity of a man propelled by fear, love, and righteous indignation, and none could halt him as he passed, moving with singular purpose. And then, in the distance, he saw Ian, casually conversing as if nothing had happened, and Fred's chest constricted, a storm breaking, all reason and restraint consumed by the singular drive to reach Anya before another second passed in which she might suffer alone. Fred's voice erupted through the station, a deep, trembling roar that seemed to make the walls themselves recoil, carrying with it the weight of every fear, every moment of helplessness, and every ounce of rage he had bottled up since hearing Ian's words. Officers froze mid-conversation, their gazes snapping to him as he lunged across the polished linoleum floor, fists swinging with a desperate, untamed fury. Ian barely managed to evade the first blow, but the second struck him squarely in the jaw, sending him staggering backward, tasting blood in shock. Immediately, hands gripped Fred's arms, pulling and restraining him with the effort of 4 men combined, but their strength could not reach the fire coursing through him. He did not feel the ache in his side anymore, did not register the burn in his muscles, did not hear anything except the single, devastating thought that Anya was behind bars and he was not there to protect her. "How could you do this?" he bellowed, his voice fracturing under the strain, reverberating through the station with the rawness of a man pushed beyond endurance. "How could you arrest her?" Each word carried the weight of betrayal, each syllable punctuated with the memory of her face, small and frightened, her wrists bruised from Ian's handcuffs, her wide, tear-filled eyes searching for him in the void. Ian wiped at his mouth, tasting blood, while trying to compose himself. "Fred, listen," he began, but Fred cut him off with a voice that rattled the air. "Don't dare to talk to me. You betrayed her. You betrayed me." The officers surrounding him adjusted their grips, bracing for the inevitable. Yet none could quell the storm raging in Fred's chest. His breath came in ragged bursts, his chest heaving as if it might burst from the force of his emotions. "Take him outside," someone muttered, attempting to restore order, but Fred's fury made him deaf to reason. "No," he shouted, the single word carrying every ounce of his desperation. "Not until I see Anya." His body strained against the officers, muscles screaming in protest as he fought to break free, to reach the one person who mattered more than anything. Ian rubbed his jaw, trying to steady himself against the tide of Fred's wrath. "You can't see her, Fred. You're on sick leave. You know the rules," he said calmly, and the words, meant to anchor the storm, instead ignited it further. Fred's hands gripped the arms of the men holding him, muscles burning with exertion, veins standing out like cords beneath his skin. "I don't give a crap about sick leave. Let me see her," he roared, voice raw with anguish and love. "You're too emotional," Ian began, but Fred's next words swallowed everything else. "Shut up." He tried to lunge forward again, but 4 strong men pinned him firmly, holding him as if he were a man made of fire, contained within their grasp. "I need to see her, Ian. You can't keep me away from her." For a long moment, Ian met his eyes, guilt flickering like a shadow across his expression. But the weight of the law, of duty, of the system he served, held him still. "I can and I will," Ian said softly, resolutely, and Fred's chest constricted with a mixture of frustration, anguish, and a stubborn, unrelenting love. He let out a deep, guttural growl, a sound that seemed to come from the depths of his soul, and demanded permission, official clearance, anything that would allow him to reach her. Ian's reply was steady, measured, impossible to circumvent. "That's not up to me, Fred. This is bigger than just us." Fred's chest rose and fell rapidly, his entire being coiled in tension as he fixed Ian with a gaze that burned. "Bigger than us? She's my whole damn world, Ian, and you locked her up like a criminal." His voice shook, but it carried a relentless certainty, a promise to Anya, a vow to himself that he would not allow the world to crush her. Ian's voice softened, almost faltering. "If she's innocent, she'll walk," he said, yet the words lacked conviction. Fred's laugh was bitter, dark, and filled with all the despair and determination that had been mounting inside him since the first call. "You don't even believe that yourself, do you? You know how this works. Innocent people rot in cells while the guilty walk free. I won't let that happen to her." Before Ian could answer, the station captain emerged, drawn by the chaos, the tension that seemed to vibrate through the very walls. "What the hell is going on here?" he demanded, voice carrying authority and disbelief. Fred seized the moment, his own voice steadying, controlled by a singular purpose that eclipsed everything else. "I want to see Anya Woodberg, now," he said, each word measured, firm, and impossible to ignore. The captain studied him, taking in the tension coiled like a spring in his posture, the fire in his eyes, and finally, after a long pause, nodded. "Fine, but you get 10 minutes, and if you so much as breathe the wrong way, I'll have you escorted out." Relief washed over Fred, but it was tempered by the simmering fury still crackling beneath his skin. He had her, if only for a moment, and nothing would keep him from proving her innocence, from comforting her, from being the anchor she needed in a world suddenly turned hostile. A guard led him down the narrow corridor toward the holding cells, the air thick with the scent of old coffee, disinfectant, and the faint tang of metal. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead, cold and harsh, throwing shadows that made the rows of barred cells appear even more unwelcoming. At last, they stopped before a single cell, unlocking the door and stepping aside. Fred inhaled deeply, letting the tension in his body flow into his chest, then pushed forward. Inside, Anya sat huddled on the narrow bench, her head bowed to her knees, her body trembling faintly, her hair loose and falling in damp strands across her face. When her eyes met his, brilliant and blue, filled with fresh tears, the world outside the cell seemed to vanish, leaving only the two of them, suspended in a fragile, trembling bubble of relief and terror. "Fred," she whispered, voice cracking under the weight of her fear, barely more than a breath. He sank to his knees before her, cupping her face in his hands, thumbs brushing away the tears that streaked her cheeks, as if he could erase all the pain she had endured. "Anya, I'm here, my love," he murmured, the words steady but trembling with everything he had felt since hearing Ian's words. She shuddered with a sob that rattled her tiny frame. "They think I killed him. They think I killed my own father," she whispered, voice quivering with disbelief and terror. Fred's jaw clenched as he leaned closer, tilting her chin gently to force her gaze to meet his. "I know," he said softly, yet firmly. "But listen to me. Look at me. I will get you out of here. Do you hear me? I will not let them do this to you." She pressed her forehead to his, body shaking, tears flowing freely as she nodded, trembling under the weight of fear, finally met with certainty. "I was so scared you wouldn't come," she admitted, her voice barely audible. "I will always come for you, Anya," he whispered, fierceness and tenderness interwoven in the single declaration. Ian watched silently, the storm he had set into motion, now contained, though the tension in the air was thick and unspoken, his eyes shadowed with the weight of his choices. Inside the cell, Fred and Anya clung to each other. Fred's presence offered a fragile tether of safety, a slender thread of warmth amid the cold, unyielding walls of the cell. Yet it could not erase the weight that pressed on Anya's chest, a relentless pressure that stole her breath and left her trembling. His hands cradled her face with careful tenderness, thumbs tracing the faint lines of worry etched in her skin, as if he could soothe not only the tears, but the fear that had taken root deep inside her. Her breaths came in short, shallow bursts, ragged and uneven, as panic clawed at the edges of her composure, dragging her down into a quiet, suffocating terror. Her thoughts, despite her desperate attempts to anchor herself in the present, twisted back over and over to one immutable truth, one raw, piercing worry, their little Kai, her bright, innocent girl, so small and so dependent, and now, locked safely in her own world, but cruelly separated from her mother by cold bars and accusations that made no sense. "Kai," Anya whispered, her voice breaking under the weight of emotion, trembling on the edge of sound, as if the word itself might shatter in her mouth. Her lips quivered as she lifted her gaze to Fred, fear shimmering in her tear-filled eyes. "What if she comes home and I'm not there? What if she thinks I abandoned her?" Her hands shook as they clutched at Fred's, pressing into his warmth for something solid, something real, some reassurance that this nightmare was temporary and that she had not already failed the person she loved most. Fred's hands tightened around hers, his thumbs moving slowly across her palms, a deliberate, grounding gesture meant to convey everything words could not. "She knows you love her. You're not abandoning her. We'll make this right," he said gently, each syllable measured and steady, a promise that sought to carve safety into the fragile chaos around them. But Anya's tears fell anyway, unheeded by logic or comfort, slipping freely down her cheeks as the terror of helplessness and absence coiled ever tighter inside her chest. I don't know if I can stand this. I don't know if I can stand the thought of her growing up without me in her life, without me holding her when she's scared or teaching her how to be independent. God, Fred, she's so small, and I'm trapped here. I won't be there for her. Her words caught and broke against the unrelenting current of panic, her voice trembling with the weight of all the fears she had tried to suppress, her hands clutching Fred's as if holding on could keep the world from falling apart. Her mind spiraled further, drawn inexorably toward the future she had worked so hard to build, to preserve, to fill with warmth and stories and laughter. What happens to the bookstore now, Fred? What if it all falls apart? It's not just a business to me. It's where I built everything. It's where I spent hours with Kai, surrounded by the stories I've always wanted to share with her. What if someone takes it all away? What if the whole thing crashes down around us, and I'm not there to stop it? The words tumbled out in a rush, propelled by fear and desperation, a fragile confession of a woman terrified that the life she had forged could slip through her fingers in an instant. Fred's expression softened, the fire of anger and frustration giving way to a gentler, quieter resolve, as he leaned closer, his voice low and unwavering. You're not alone in this. We'll figure it out, Anya. I promise you. We'll get through this, and I'll make sure your bookstore and our Kai are protected. You don't have to carry this all on your own. His fingers brushed back strands of her hair, and he held her gaze with a steady intensity, as if he could transfer the certainty of his conviction into her very bones. Yet even as he spoke, the cold, confining reality of the cell pressed against them, and the terror in Anya's heart did not ease. She could not shake the gnawing fear that everything she loved, her daughter, her half-sister Matilda, her carefully nurtured sanctuary of stories, her life with Fred, was slipping irretrievably through her grasp. Anya clung to him tighter, her sobs quiet now, but desperate, racking her body with tremors of helplessness and fear. Please, don't let this take her from me. I can't lose her. Please, she whispered, voice fragile and raw, a single thread of plea, tethered to the man who had become her lifeline. Fred's arms tightened around her, firm and unwavering, his own voice low and resolute as he sought to anchor her in the present, to quiet the storm raging in her chest. I won't let anything happen to her, Anya. I won't let her lose you. We'll get through this together. His words fell like soft stones into the river of her panic, rippling outward with intent, carrying the weight of his love and certainty. But even as he spoke, the oppressive walls of the cell seemed to close in, a tangible reminder that their safety, their life, their family was not yet within reach. Every second stretched and twisted, heavy with the anticipation of loss and the dread of absence, and Anya's mind wandered relentlessly to Kai, alone and wondering where her mother had gone. The bright world she knew suddenly rendered cold and confusing. Her throat tightened as she imagined her daughter, her hands small and delicate, her eyes searching for a comfort she could not yet grasp. Then Ian's voice, flat and devoid of any warmth, intruded upon their fragile conclusion. 10 minutes are up, he said, arms crossed, standing like an unyielding sentinel in the doorway, observing them with the clinical detachment of someone who had long since learned to separate duty from emotion. Fred, it's time to go. Anya, you need to get some rest. This isn't helping anything. Fred's face contorted with frustration, a spark of raw fury igniting once more. She's my partner. She's my family. You can't just... I'm not asking, Ian interrupted, his voice sharp, unwavering. The rules are the rules. You've had your time, Fred. Now you need to leave. Anya's chest constricted, the cruel reality of separation settling over her like a suffocating fog. Her voice quivered, torn between plea and despair, as she pressed closer to Fred, refusing to let the slender connection slip away. No, she whispered, voice cracking with unbearable weight. Please, no, don't make him go. I need him here. I can't do this alone. Tears spilled freely down her cheeks, warm and insistent, as she reached for him, clinging to the only certainty in a world that had suddenly become alien and hostile. Please, don't leave me. Don't let them do this to us. Don't let them take everything away. Fred's heart clenched as he met her gaze, absorbing every tremor, every shard of fear, every raw pulse of desperation. He wanted to enfold her completely, to shield her from the cold, to promise that the chaos would end. But the world pressed in too heavily, embodied in Ian standing watch outside, and the unyielding laws that govern the cell and the station and the city beyond. Each second stretched impossibly long as he searched for words that might steady her trembling spirit, words that could hold the terror at bay, even briefly. "I'm not leaving you, Anya," he said, voice heavy with unspoken emotion and iron resolve. "I swear, I'm not leaving you. We'll figure this out, okay? But I have to go now. I'll be right back for you. I won't let them keep you here much longer." Even as he spoke, even as his arms remained wrapped around her, holding her close against the uncertainty, Anya could not shake the weight pressing into her chest. The minutes felt like hours, the walls around them like iron bars pressing in from every side. Yet within that fraught, fragile embrace, a small spark of hope endured, fragile but unbroken, tethered to the certainty of his love and the promise that he would return. "I'm scared, Fred. I don't know how to do this. Please, I need you. I can't be alone here," she whispered, her voice a raw thread of vulnerability, trembling with every syllable, eyes wide and shining with unshed tears. Fred's breath caught, heavy and unsteady, as he leaned in to press a gentle kiss to her forehead, the weight of the moment pressing down on him in ways that words could not touch. "You're not alone, Anya. I'll be back. I won't let them harm you, but I have to go now. You have to stay strong for me, okay? For Kai, for our family." His voice was steady, deliberate, but the quiet ache behind it betrayed the gravity of leaving her behind, if only for a little while. He turned to face Ian, eyes burning with a fury that had not yet dimmed, the fire of a man who refused to see innocence trampled. "You're making a mistake, Lewis," he said, low and steady, yet carrying the full weight of conviction. "You know nothing about Anya, really. You don't know what she's been through. She couldn't possibly be behind all this mess." Ian's response was a measured nod, unreadable and distant, a sentinel of the rules that govern the sterile world. Fred hesitated for a breath, his gaze drifting back to Anya, tracing the line of her jaw, the curve of her cheek, the tears glistening on her lashes, and with a voice that trembled despite his effort to remain composed, he whispered, "I love you." Anya's response was a fragile echo, breaking softly from the depths of her fear and longing. "I love you too," she said, her voice muffled by the tears spilling freely down her face. And then, with that delicate exchange, Fred stepped toward the door, each movement heavy with the inevitability of separation. Her body convulsed with the force of her emotion, heart hammering wildly, instincts screaming at her to follow, to pull him back, to keep him with her. Her fingers trembled as she reached for the bars, gripping them with a desperate strength, as though she could tether him with sheer willpower alone. "Fred!" she cried, voice raw and shattering, echoing across the cold expanse of the cell. The sound tore at her throat, carrying every ounce of her despair, her fear, and her unbearable longing. The metal beneath her palms felt impossibly cold, biting against her skin as she pressed forward, a futile attempt to bridge the widening gap between them. But Fred did not turn. He could not. The pain of leaving her behind, of witnessing the raw, unfiltered agony in her eyes, would have broken him in ways he could not endure. Each step he took away was a blade slicing through both of them, but he had to carry this fight outside, to confront the world that had taken her from him, to bring her back home. Anya pressed her forehead to the cool, unforgiving metal of the bars, breaths coming in ragged, jagged bursts, each one a struggle against the suffocating weight of despair. "Fred, please," she cried, her voice breaking into pieces, a tremulous, shattering plea that carried the full force of her fear and helplessness. Her chest heaved, the sound of it filling the emptiness, clashing with the hollow echoes of his retreating footsteps. Each measured strike of his shoes against the concrete floor became a cruel metronome, a reminder that time was slipping, that the moment, the fragile sanctuary of connection they had carved out, was vanishing with each passing heartbeat. Her legs shook violently as she tried to follow him, her body trembling too much to take a step, too raw with panic to move. And yet her gaze remained fixed on his figure, willing him to turn, to stay, to erase the distance between them. But he did not, and the cruel truth hit her like a wave, a sharp, relentless force that left her gasping and broken. He was leaving, and the door would close behind him. A sob tore itself free from her chest, raw and unrestrained, a sound that seemed to fill the sterile cell, to make the walls themselves tremble with its weight. "Fred, please, don't leave me here," she cried, her voice raw, shaking, pleading. But it did not reach him. She sank to her knees, fingers clutching the cold bars with a desperation that seemed to tether her to the last remnants of hope, body racked with tremors of helplessness and fear. The faint click of the door sealing shut behind him echoed in her ears, final and merciless, and the reality crashed over her in relentless waves. The cell, once merely cold and impersonal, now seemed to consume her, swallowing the remaining warmth that Fred had left behind, stretching the silence into a suffocating expanse that pressed against her from all sides. She closed her eyes, pressed her palms to her face, seeking to stem the tide of tears, but the wave of fear, of helplessness, of profound loss, would not be held back. Her mind returned again to Kai, imagining her small figure in the quiet, empty house, her little hands searching for the comfort of her mother, eyes bright with confusion and longing. The thought twisted inside Anya like a knife, a cruel reminder of the distance now separating them. Fred had left, and she was still here, in the cold, empty cell, the walls around her echoing with the absence of the only person who could make the world feel right again.